new things are happening now, right? In the industry, in innovation and in the digital sphere that I think puts the industry in a different light now. The opportunities now are quite amazing.
Welcome to the Shipping Podcast, where I meet interesting maritime professionals sharing their passion for the shipping industry and their everyday job. I am your host. My name is Lena Gothberg. Hello, Shipping Podcast lovers. Welcome to the 101st episode of the Shipping Podcast, where you will be listening to Nicklas Viby Fursund, who is the partner and managing director at Rainmaking Transport. And that is a corporate innovation and venture development company in Copenhagen. And Nicklas is focusing on the transport sector. Rainmaking is an innovation house for all kinds of industries, but being in a shipping podcast episode, we are focused on the maritime domain. I met Nicklas on May the 18th in Copenhagen, where he had invited me to come and see for myself this amazing building with the most astonishing view at the Langelinie Pier. That is a former cruise pier at the tip of the water with a lot of maritime activity still going on outside the window. Nicklas also took me for a guided tour in the building before we sat down for this chat. I met some familiar faces, for instance, Deanna MacDonald, the blockchain expert, who you can listen to in episode 40 and learn all about that topic. Walking through this building, it was almost possible to touch on innovation. There were small teams working on solving challenges that they had been given from companies or organizations, and they were eager to find easy, usable digital solutions to things that have been hindering development in our industry for such a long time. And they were having fun doing it, and the joy was contagious. I felt lighthearted walking around there, and might I add, a bit embarrassed as I was greeted as a rock star. Apparently, a lot of the young entrepreneurs in this house is listening to the Shipping Podcast. I thoroughly enjoyed my visit to Rainmaking Transport, even though I had a cold with a dreadful cough at the time. I hope that you will enjoy listening to Nicklas. Here we go. Welcome to the Shipping Podcast.
Thank you so much, Lena.
Could you please introduce yourself?
I'm Nicklas Viby Fursund, and I'm a partner in Rainmaking and Rainmaking Transport.
And what is your background?
I've been in the maritime and transport industry for about 20 years, I suppose. Part of that in a corporate context, in different commercial roles, in a strategy office role, in operations. But then part of my time in the industry also, with the different angles of building digital ventures and products within that space.
So what is your education? Are you an engineer or?
No, I'm not an engineer. That maybe would have been smart. I started in a shipping company, probably at the photocopier, doing really basic stuff, and then working my way up. So I started as a trainee, and then at the same time studied at a business school.
So why shipping? How did you first meet shipping?
Yeah, that was purely a coincidence, I have to say. I'm not sure, and I think many people say that, right? I mean, how many actually deliberately said, I really want that? Some do, of course, right? But many that I speak to, at least, they ended up there kind of randomly. And
that's why I have that question.
Yeah, okay, yeah. And it was the same for me. It was an interesting learning position, I think, and it was fun to try to get in. And then once in, I really liked it, right? I had an amazing time during all my years actually doing different things. It's such a fascinating industry from so many angles, but I think also at a certain point I left the industry because for me at least, it was emptying out in terms of like what the really big opportunities were in that industry. It had become an industry where it was all about squeezing suppliers and negotiating hard, and instead of really creating radical change or really creating an impact that made a difference to more people. So So actually at a certain point, I said, maybe that's not for me. And that was after 12 or 13 years in the industry. So it's quite a change for me, right?
So you've been working for a ship owner or for a manager or for?
Yeah, I work for a shipping company, a big light blue one.
Okay.
In
Denmark?
In Denmark, in different places in the world, in Singapore, in Holland, in Belgium, and an amazing time there. Also in some of the smaller affiliates within that company, and absolutely loved it. Great time. And then also for me, time to at some point actually leave the industry. I did that. I built an online business in something completely different. Had quite a few learnings out of that, because obviously coming from a corporate, that's not what you generally do. If anyone thinks they can do that without having experts by your side or going through some training in that, then forget about it, right? So I did every mistake in the book in building an online marketplace in a different industry. So, for example, I hired a full tech team in India. I was the CTO as well as the CEO of the startup, and managed that technical building process, and quite naively thought I would succeed with that. I built something over a long period and spent some funds on that. That was not very good. I scrapped it. I built it again. That worked. I succeeded. But then at a certain point, I actually came back to the maritime industry, because new things are happening now, right? In the industry, in innovation and in the digital sphere, that I think puts the industry in a different light now. The opportunities now are quite amazing, and I'm very passionate about that.
Yeah, you just showed me around here. Pier 47 in Copenhagen. And can we talk about that?
Yeah, so we're in a house now that is, I think, quite an amazing building. Actually, it's at a
I'm sold.
It's at a pier. There are ships around us. The building is really quite amazing in terms of views and stuff. But one shouldn't move here for the view. It's a house we are creating for corporate innovators and startups and scale-ups to sit and learn from each other. And that's one of several things we do. But yeah, so we work here as Rainmaking, as well as a few other places, and we invite partners in. So corporate innovation teams or cross-functional project teams, they move out here when breaking free of the corporate machine. And I think that's really, I think everyone knows this today. It's kind of page 1 in the innovation book.
No, I don't think everyone knows that. So maybe you should just stand up and be that leading star now. How it's done.
So what I mean is simply that if you want to work in really different ways, if you establish a team that you want to come up with things that have not been seen before within a corporate context, you want to do it in a new way. Those people maybe need to be slightly different people. They need to work with a different governance. So the usual maybe steering committee model is maybe not ideal for them. How do you want to seed fund it and so on, right? So they need to work in a different way. And if you want to do that and give them that autonomy to work in a new way, I think it's actually, I think many are recognizing at least that you want to put them in a different place than the usual context. And so this house is one of the places you can do that, to move your corporate team out, and they get that arm's length distance to the corporate, and they sit along with other corporate innovation teams that have similar challenges as them. So we see now how teams across industries, they get to learn from each other. So a banking innovation team gets to work alongside. I mean, they do what they do, right? They have their day jobs, but they sit next to or meet in the canteen or through some of the facilitation that we do, maybe a maritime innovation team, and they have lots to learn from each other, actually. And then when you blend that with startup and really the latest innovation in that space, then it gets really interesting for everyone. So
how did this all come about? Because I'm amazed that someone thought about it, that also makes a difference if you are sitting close to each other. And I understand the whole house is not only maritime, it's a lot of innovation.
Yeah, so I think, you don't really come up with that, I suppose. At least it's not something that, there's so many ideas around, and that's one of many ideas. But I think for us, it came through really listening to what our partners need. As Rainmaking, we work in many different models and vehicles, but all at the intersection of corporate and startup. Because we believe that both sides have something really unique to offer. Often when we talk digital and disruption, it's a very fearful picture, and ships are going to disappear, and so will cranes, and shipping companies will die, and so on. And who am I to say, right? But I think one often forgets the really strong assets that the traditional corporate players have in terms of brand and capital and resources, knowledge, distribution channels, and so on. It's just half of the equation, because on the other side you have startup world with new innovation and agility and speed and so on. So in everything we do, we work at that intersection in different models that we can always talk about. But so that is to say, we work with many corporate partners, and they tell us that they have challenges in figuring out how do we navigate disruption, how do we choose where to invest, how do we actually build a product, and so on. And so we had interest in this sort of thing. How do we actually get to sit with other corporate partners and learn with startups in a facilitated manner? So with some partners, we started creating that.
Do you see the silly smile on my face?
I do see you smiling. So why is that? Of course, I love it, but what do you think?
I just get happy.
Yeah.
I feel someone is thinking. Okay. So what are the most... do you see any trends in what is now the startups are looking at? I mean, are they in the same areas, or are they completely different ideas that is being tested or innovated?
So I think in a lot of the dialogues we have, we hear a fear of the next Uber or the next Airbnb model in shipping or in subsectors of transportation, and so that may happen. But I think that's one of so many different models. When we look at it, and when we build ventures with corporations, then we look at the value chain or the supply chain, and when you look at that, then there's so many pockets of inefficiencies and therefore opportunities to build. And that's what startups do, right? I mean, some of course try to attack the whole chain, and good luck with that, probably. But there's so many inefficiencies that we in the maritime and transport industry, for years we've been saying, that's a problem, and that's a problem, and why isn't someone solving that? And that's actually, I think, the opportunity now, that those problems you can build solutions for. You can make a business out of that. You can, of course, either get internal cost savings, but that's really such a small part compared to if you manage to commercialize it in the market and sell it to your competition or your customers or suppliers or partners somehow. There's a whole market waiting out there to buy services that solve problems in your value chain. And so when we ask about trends and startups, then they are, and that sounds wrong, right? But they're all over the place, because they're in all the pockets of the value chain, of the supply chain, biting away of the value in the end-to-end logistics chain that traditional players have been sitting on. And that's a massive opportunity for everyone, right? For the startups, obviously, but also in our humble view for the corporations that manage to somehow start unlocking those opportunities also, either in partnerships with startups or by building solutions with startups or with other tech partners that address some of those problems that we all know about. I mean, years of consultancy and internal work has been done in identifying all those problems. So we all know them. It's just now, how do you address them in new ways? And for those that manage to do that, I think that's an amazing opportunity right now. In fact, I think the way we look at it is the business models of the traditional industry that are still going strong, and our partners out there are doing that, have been, I think, is common knowledge now, commoditized. So moving things from A to B or lifting things on and off is more and more being commoditized, if not fully already. So it's hard to see how that suddenly in future will make much more money or be a lot more profitable by doing the same. But the opportunity, when we look at some of the smaller pockets of problems or inefficiencies along that supply chain, combined with technology or digital means and new business models, enables that corporations start building new value on top of their existing business model. So being placed with, let's say, an A to B model or lifting things on and off is an amazing point of departure to start building new solutions around that obviously add to the top line, But when you look at the valuation of most companies now in our space here, most are faced with a valuation of close to, so when I say valuation, so like a market valuation or stock market value of close to the book value of their assets. So little value put on the operating model. That's not great, right? Being a corporation having to attract financing for future growth. But when we look at then what business models are unlocked by digitalization, then those come with much higher scalability and thus multiplier on your valuation or your market value. So if one manages now as a strong corporate partner to work with new business models, either with startups or you manage to somehow create that yourself in multiple new areas, you're able to obviously add top line to your company, but important for many also radically increase the value of your company and thus be able to attract the necessary finance to grow your business in the future.
Disruption.
Yes.
Disruption. Will that come from inside the industry or from outside?
What is disruption, do you think?
Yeah, you were talking about the Uber thing.
Yeah.
So will that be someone from the maritime industry that invents the maritime Uber, or will it be someone from Google side that will invent the maritime Uber?
Yeah, it's hard to say, I think. So disruption, I think the way we look at it is your market disappearing because a new model comes up and a new market is created somehow. And so will someone take away the business model of moving things from A to B? I don't know, but I think we can look at returns or EBITDA of that business model now, and it's not great. And you need obviously large asset investments to play in that game. So who wants to take that? That's probably fine. I think what's more interesting is maybe not disrupting that, but building things on top or around that, and build businesses out of that. And that is the opportunity for many of the startups we see, but also for the corporate partners.
I just wanted to ask, because you see it from a different angle, and if I meet a ship owner, he knows or she knows about his or her company, and sometimes you need to get a view of outside, looking in and so on.
Yeah, and I think one should be alert to that, right? Is my business model being replaced? Or what are you going to do about it? More so maybe get into action and start unlocking some of the value around you that is sitting there and others are chewing away at. Because we see now some are doing it. And when we look at the industry now, then some are only realizing the opportunity now, some have realized and are going at it, and some are actually quite progressed out there. So that's good. So traditional strong companies in our space, companies that we work with, are doing it. That's awesome. Startups are also addressing those opportunities, and outside corporations. So let's talk about the Amazons and GE and so on that are also the IBMs of the world that are interested in our industry now, because they see the same opportunity, of course. So, okay, one should keep an eye open on whether the existing business model is disappearing, but maybe I wouldn't be too concerned about whether shipping is needed. More so whether I'm able to take the opportunities around that and increase my own EBITDAs to become one of the future leaders.
Innovation is traditionally looked upon as a technical innovation in our industry. Used to be, because there's so much cutting edge techniques for ships and things like that. So innovation in this new world, what is that?
Yeah, what is innovation? Firstly, maybe I think as an industry we should pat ourselves on the back for the technical innovation. For many years, significant investments have been made in technical innovation. Really good things have come out of that. So I think those that say the industry hasn't innovated, I'm not sure. A lot of good things have been done there.
But we have to be provocative from time to time.
Yeah, so I think, but what innovation is happening in a new space, and that's also interesting to compare the two, right? Because when we look at technical innovation, we understand that it takes entirely new knowledge to innovate within the technical world. Maybe some of the engineers that I'm not. And so we need the same realization for innovating in a different world, in digital or in new technologies that are online, like blockchain or AI. And similarly, new capability is needed to succeed in that. We see some companies now that do move, and it's good to see, but need to build that capability, and that's hard to do internally, right? How do you attract top talent in AI to your shipping company? And so if you can't, and I think many struggle with that, then how do you then partner your way out of it? But so innovation, so why innovate at all? One could ask.
Because otherwise you die.
Yeah, and that's spot on. Because that is the one thing we know, that the corporate lifespan continues to shorten. So when we look at innovation, then the purpose of innovation is to rejuvenate the organization, to extend the lifetime of that. And then you have to then drill it down to, you need to add to the top line, you have to reduce your cost, add new revenue streams through, and that's the good thing, that there's new technology and business model available to add to the top line in new ways, but ultimately all to make it more profitable and make sure that you are future-proof as an organization.
Because I see a little bit of a trend from my small view in Gothenburg. But in Scandinavia, I understand that ship-owning companies have realized that they need to be part of this new development, digitalization, and so on. So either they hire a couple of young people who thinks a little bit different into their company, or they buy someone who's just sold their startup or things like that. And then I think, will that not be very isolated little island within the big company? I mean, for culture and how will they then sell their message into the company? It will be hard if it's not anchored at the top. Am I right here? Or?
Maybe in some ways, at least for some of the models, it's okay if it's isolated. Maybe actually it's good if it's isolated, because they get to move faster. If you can isolate it, maybe place it differently, maybe in a house like this, get them out, let them do what they do. Because if it is in-house, I think one of the most common challenges or blockers we see to large corporations succeeding is internal culture, which is maybe also what you're getting to. Because one can allocate budgets and hire people, maybe buy startups. But if a global corporation, an organization is not there yet mentally and skill-wise, then it's unlikely to work.
And in a way, I feel sorry, because they are struggling, and they get all the expectations from the rest of the organization, because they were just brought in to do something.
Yeah.
And the rest of the organization is still the same, organized the same way, and there's a technical department which is maybe a little bit suspicious about the new guys coming in, and what do they do? Because we are technical here and we know all about that, so what are they doing? And then you got the IT department, which is thinking, what are they doing? Because, it's all a mess if you don't see what's happening and see what you need to do. So that's what I'm trying to get at here.
Yeah. And so I think it's one thing we do is to help figure out, like, how does one actually do that? Because part of that organization runs a business, a core business, and you really shouldn't touch that and suddenly start turning everything upside down. Similarly, if you are running a bank or an insurance company, part of that is managing risk and making sure that new innovation doesn't interrupt on a daily basis, because you have a business to run. And if you run a shipping operation or another sort of operation, you cannot have, of course, new and unproven initiatives or technology coming up every day and for everyone to change their mindset. So how do you actually balance that? And so in a way, you have to isolate part of the organization and not interrupt it in what it does really well and what it's been trained to do, while establish units that are able to move in a different way. And so as an organization, if one hasn't gone through that cultural journey yet, one should get started, because it takes years and it's a significant blocker for succeeding in the future. But then in terms of getting some fast results and actually getting into investments or getting into opportunities that provide value longer term, then do it externally initially through partners somehow, so that you're able to move fast right now while not disturbing your organization, and then slowly work on the culture until a bigger and the correct part of that organization can start taking on more and work with innovation in ways that they are actually equipped to do. And so, there are vehicles for that, right? I think one that everyone talks about is accelerators. We already see that many places in the world within the maritime industry now, so that's interesting to follow how that plays out. There's a good one in Rotterdam. I think CMA is establishing one in Marseille. There are things happening in Singapore and so on.
Israel, we met last week.
And Israel, yeah. Good guys there also. And so those are vehicles for many things, right? For M&A, deal flow, for maybe partnerships.
How do you see the future for shipping in general?
So there are many opinions about that, and we are probably not really in the opinion space or crystal ball space. So it's hard to say how it will play out. We base our views on what we've seen in other industries. We are specialized in the maritime and transport industry, and we work across a number of other industries. So for the last 10 years, we've been working on venture building, accelerators, and so on in other industries. And when applying a maritime lens to that, so what's likely to happen? Because who knows? So when looking at corporations in other industries, I think we can see that some manage to make something out of the opportunities that we discussed before, and others stay by only the traditional business model. And both could be okay, but generally we see a lower return on investment in those that stay with one traditional business model that is increasingly commoditized, compared to those that also work on that and remain working on being better and better, more and more effective in executing that business model, being a shipping company or a manufacturer or the like, while then leveraging the new opportunities to create basically a higher EBIT in your company. So when looking at shipping in the future, I think we'll see, based on what we've seen in other industries, corporations that remain being shipping companies, or maybe more likely end-to-end transport companies that either have focused on that and they will have a certain return on investment that is likely lower than those that have also done that and managed to build new products, services, ventures around their core to become a much more diversified company.
The shipping industry is often looked upon like the Cinderella industry. No one knows about us.
Yeah.
How do we become more visible to the general public?
Why would we want to be?
You tell me.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I can list. We need the brightest people in our industry, to our industry.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't know about us, they won't find us. They can see our problems and they can try and solve it from outside, but they will still need something else. Then we got all the politicians who are regulating the industry. They need to know more than oil spill and or someone earning a lot of money on their ship owning company.
So I do see the rationale in being able to, for example, attract talent. So I'm maybe not convinced that we want to promote the industry for the sake of promotion, as in promoting the current stage.
Because it's so bad, or?
No, I think it's a super fascinating and large and potentially impactful industry. But if we want to attract talent, then it will not be by saying, here's my company, the way it works today, and you top talent who knows about things that I do not. Do you want to come and work in my paper-based industry and work in Excel? Right. So promoting the current status, I'm not sure will get us very far. But we do sit on, I think, as an industry, a platform that we can do amazing things with that may attract people. But maybe we should attract through what we do more than say, come join us or see how big and cool we are. Because it is a very large industry and the underlying foundation for world trade. So I think I'm personally fascinated by that, and maybe there's a story around that. But it's maybe even better to start creating new solutions that create impact in the world, or start reshaping the industry and talking about that and attract talent into that. That would be my bet.
Yeah, but who are our heroes? Who are the ones that we that represents us?
I think the way it looks right now, probably anyone can be a hero. Any shipping line CEO or industry corporate CEO or anyone else in the organization can take that and make bold moves and start being the ones that influence and change. Maybe even without knowing how to do it, being focused on a big problem that one faces as a corporation or as an industry, and being passionate about wanting to solve it, attracting people to wanting to join that journey, daring to do things that they today do not, maybe without fully knowing how to do that, but entering partnerships, learning as you go. I think we will see who are the heroes, right? Who grab that and dares to make the bold moves. Already some are doing it.
Yeah, I agree. Who would you like to listen to in a future episode of the Shipping Podcast?
Good question. Couple of people, maybe. I think someone should interview you. Now, you've spoken to so many people. You have gained some insights over a period. I think it would be super interesting if you had a chance to voice that. I also think, please have someone do that.
I did that when I had a 2-year anniversary.
Okay.
But it was only a few close friends in the industry that did that.
Yeah. I was talking a bit to you before, right, on what had stood out for you, and I think that would be interesting to broadcast and kind of play back to everyone. Then we tend to be very focused, like inside our industry, and you speak to many people within the industry. Maybe get someone from outside, and entrepreneur that have just succeeded outside this industry. How does he or she look at this industry as an opportunity, or a corporation from another industry that has been through a similar journey that companies in our world now are going through, but are 5 years ahead? Lastly, I want to say I think the Global Maritime Forum are doing some interesting things in gathering corporations from our industry and facilitating a new way of sharing and learning and helping each other in more collaborative ways. So maybe have a chat with Johanna Christensen, who is in that awesome setup.
And she's a woman.
She's a woman.
Really great, really great. Thank you very much for taking the time to speak to me, Nicklas.
Thank you so much, Lena, for letting me and for doing this. I think you're part of pushing the industry by sharing what some people think, at least. And if someone listens, then maybe we all get a little smarter and can take this forward. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicklas. I appreciated my visit to Rainmaking Transport very much, and I hope to get a chance to go back very soon. I have noted that you have got some heavy partners onto your platform lately, and you were also mentioned as maybe representing the shipping man of 2030 recently. I know that Nicklas has been waiting for this interview to finally be released. And this week I got a suggestion from a future guest to make an interview very quickly that could perhaps be released in this week as a Christmas greeting. Well, let me tell you a secret. I do this in my spare time. I have to continue working with other things to support myself. So I have to plan ahead. I have a long pipeline with interviews so that I know that I will not disappoint you and not release a new episode every other Friday. I don't know if it's interesting to you, but I have to say that I'm making interviews when I travel. When I meet people I think has an interesting job or a story to tell. And then I put them in my pipeline for release later on. It's impossible for me to jump on a plane or a call or something like that and produce an episode in a few days. It can be done, I'm not saying otherwise, but then I will have to put everything else aside and just focus on that for a few days. And what will my clients think then? We all have obligations to meet. Even though I can honestly say that I have also been waiting for this episode to be released. In a way, it's unfortunate that an episode on innovation doesn't come out in 6 months, because so many things happens in the innovation space in 6 months. But I can't really do that. I have to focus on the fact that the Shipping Podcast is focusing on the people and not the business, even if they go hand in hand. I have to say that this was an interesting episode with Nicklas Viby. I see similar initiatives as Rainmaking Transport both in Norway and in Finland. I see them in Sweden for other industries. And to me, that is very discouraging. I would have loved to see one in Sweden on maritime innovation, and especially in Gothenburg, where the Swedish government has opened their research institute, and where so much innovation is going on for the automotive industry, where an AI Center of Excellence was opened only last week, and where we have a world-class technical university and a lot of knowledge that we as the maritime industry should try and tap into. I understand that we don't have so much of a maritime industry left in my country, but as a heavily export-dependent country, maybe there is a need for a revision on how Sweden can take part in these global initiatives in our neighboring countries if we can't put them up ourselves. Going back to the Shipping Podcast, thank you for all greetings when releasing the 100th episode, a milestone. I got many shout-outs in social media and in the inbox of hello@shippingpodcast.com. There was a lot of appreciations received. I can see that 675 people has already downloaded the episode, which is not that many more than usual listenings during the first week. But I must ask you, did you go out there and told people that they must download and listen? That is your obligation to this. As I cannot really compare the 100th episode to the rest of the episodes before until after 45 days, I cannot see if there is a bump in the numbers of subscribers or not. I'm just reminding you of your obligations to get this podcast to the top lists where it needs to be. As Nicklas mentioned in this episode, innovation is taking advantage of the many pockets of inefficiency. And that is something I am also trying to do, but more in the maritime media industry. If you dare to join me on my journey and want to partner up with me, I am waiting to hear from you. Until then, I can promise you that I have 7 episodes, really, really good ones, in my pipeline at the moment. And that will take us into March 2019. So with that promise from me to you, I would like to take the opportunity to wish you a happy and prosperous New Year 2019. From me to you, over and out. Thank you for listening to the Shipping Podcast. Don't forget to tell everyone that you meet that there is a Shipping Podcast available and that they should download it and listen to the maritime professionals who are sharing their passion for the shipping industry.